Warning: contains somewhat mature content, including language, brief violence, and mild sexual themes, and may not be suitable for people under age 14.
But, she said, if you can tell the future, how could you make a mistake? Kane sighed and went over to sit on his table, observing them.
It's not very often I'll make a mistake,
he said slowly.
But in the past few weeks, I've found it entirely possible.
Raiden furrowed his brow, and he and Cho came closer to Kane, listening intently.
Raiden, I did not foresee Cho transforming,
said Kane.
Therefore, I didn't expect you to start avoiding her, nor did I see Cho running away. If that had continued, and you had not apologized, I'm afraid to say your attack on Emperor Trachis would not have been successful, and we would all die.
Raiden's lips parted slowly. So, that small change of events would have changed our entire future? He asked. Kane nodded.
Something within Cho must have eluded my vision. It's possible that she has a power of some kind that deflects most demon powers, making it so I couldn't see her transforming in the future.
Cho blinked. How could that be? She asked. I had no powers at that time. I was pure human. How could I have some unknown power before Baron transferred his own powers to me?
I wish I could tell you,
said Kane.
But I don't even know. My theory, however, is that all of the anger you built up from your past had transformed, causing your body and soul to actually morph into an energy force fueled by your anger.
Cho blinked a few times, trying to understand. So, she began slowly, are you saying that I turned into an emotion? Kane let out a tiny chuckle, but then coughed hard for a few seconds.
Sort of,
he said when he ended his coughing fit.
I guess that's more or less an easier way to explain it.
But I don't remember what happened when I transformed, said Cho. Is it possible to control this power at all? It might come in handy.
It is possible to control any power, but it could be very difficult with this one,
Kane explained.
I would discuss this with Baron. I have heard that he might possess that power as well. If that's true, not only would he be the only demon capable of controlling it, but he'd also be the only being capable of teaching you how to control it.
Cho paused, then nodded. Raiden covered his mouth, stifling a chuckle. Cho looked up at him. What? She asked, bewildered. Raiden shook his head, smiling.
You're so cute when you're confused.
A few hours after leaving Kane's place, Raiden took Cho to see Baron. Baron was once again in his underground home, playing chess with himself.
Did we have a lesson today?
Asked Baron, hearing them enter, but not turning to acknowledge them.
I'm afraid it must have slipped my mind.
Raiden went over to sit at the chess table in the seat opposite from Baron, beginning to move the stone pieces on his side.
I'm sorry to say we didn't have one scheduled, said Raiden, taking one of Baron's pawns. But now would be a good time to have one if you're not too busy. We seem to have discovered that Cho has herself a hidden ability.
Baron raised his eyebrows, taking a rook from Raiden.
Oh?
He said, seemingly interested.
And what would that be?
We're not entirely sure, said Raiden, pausing to think about his next move. But Kane proposed a theory that Cho was able to transform her body and soul into pure anger.
Baron's body stiffened, and he lifted his eyes from the chessboard to Raiden's face. Raiden met his gaze calmly.
How do you figure?
He asked slowly, much more interested now.
Before we came to find you, Raiden explained, Cho had transformed into a very angry state. She nearly killed me.
Baron stared at Raiden, not blinking.
She shifted?
He asked, sounding astonished. Raiden furrowed his brow.
Shifted?
He asked, unsure if that's what he had heard. Baron nodded.
I've never known very many demons to shift, let alone a human being with no demonic powers yet,
Baron replied.
But what does it mean?
Raiden asked.
To shift means to concentrate the energy of a powerful emotion and let it run your soul, so to speak.
Baron explained.
Depending on the emotion, you can become very powerful. However, if you don't know how to control it, it could kill both you and those close to you. There's usually only one demon per century at a time that can shift. I didn't think a human was capable of doing it.
Raiden nodded, continuing the chess game.
Well, I'm almost positive that Cho can do it, he said. But she can't control it. That's why we came here, so you could teach her how to control it. Checkmate.
Raiden had cornered Baron's king, and he sat back in his chair, folding his arms. Baron frowned.
I don't remember inviting you to join this game,
he said. Raiden chuckled.
You're just being a sore loser, he replied. Are you going to help Cho or what?
Baron sighed and looked over at Cho, who smiled sheepishly.
Yeah,
he said.
I'll help her. Just gives us more of an advantage of killing Drakus.
He stood and opened a portal, and Raiden and Cho followed Baron back into the training arena. Baron was about to set his hand on Raiden's head to clone him again, but Cho stopped him. Wait! I don't want to fight Raiden again, Cho said quickly. Baron raised his eyebrows, and Cho flushed pink.
Well, why not?
He asked.
You had no problem with it last time.
Cho hung her head. Raiden looked down at her, then up at Baron.
She knows that I'm no match for her after she's shifted,
he said calmly, as if that was exactly what Cho was going to say.
She nearly killed me as a shifted human. Just think how quickly she'd kill me after shifting and possessing her new demon powers. It wouldn't be a challenge.
Baron thought, then nodded.
Good point,
he said, and Cho gave Raiden a thankful smile. Baron set his hand on his own head and cloned himself. His clone jumped down into the arena, and the original gestured for Cho to follow.
My clone will instruct you how to transform willingly. You are to attack him only. If you attack me or Raiden, we'll know that you haven't gained control of your shifted form.
Cho nodded and jumped down into the arena with the second Baron. Cho spaced herself from the clone, watching him carefully. He seemed very calm.
I'm sure you can guess how you transform at will,
he said.
Gather up as much anger as you possibly can, and try to focus it on the pure thought of taking it out on me. But in order to remain conscious, you also need to remind yourself of who you are and who you want to protect. Don't let yourself harm Raiden or the original Baron.
Cho nodded, feeling worried now. Baron's clone smiled.
Do it now.
Cho closed her eyes and concentrated hard. She concentrated on everything that had made her angry. She began to see images of her father, then of herself as a young girl, covered in bruises. She saw her mother getting killed right before her eyes, and then her mother's rotten corpse a year later. She also saw Raiden getting thrown against a marble wall by Drakus. The pure white light of the arena was extinguished and replaced by a cold gray darkness. Cho had shifted, her glowing white hair blowing in the non-existent wind around her face. She squinted over at the shadowy figure that was Baron's clone, but it was blurry. Her vision kept fading in and out, as if she was about to faint. Cho staggered slightly and looked up to where the real Baron and Raiden were standing, and her vision went completely black.
Cho,
said a hazy voice echoing through Cho's head. Cho opened her eyes slowly, and she saw a blurry violet shape hovering above her. She blinked a few times, and her vision became clearer, the violet blob turning into Raiden. He sighed and helped Cho sit up. "What happened?" she asked, her throat feeling dry. She noticed that Raiden had a new scar on the right side of his face. Baron and his clone were standing a few feet away.
"You attacked us," said Raiden. "I think you forgot to think about only attacking the clone."
Cho hung her head. "I'm sorry," she said. "It was harder than I thought. I only thought about things that made me angry and not about the people I wanted to protect. How long was I out for?"
About 30 minutes,
said Baron.
Try again, Cho.
His clone went back into the arena.
I didn't expect you to get it on the first try.
Cho stood up, staggering slightly. She regained composure and followed Baron's clone. They looked each other in the eye from a few yards away until the clone nodded, telling Cho to try again. Cho sighed and closed her eyes, this time thinking of people she loved in between her angry thoughts. She thought of her father killing her mother, but then saw her mother alive, telling her everything was going to be okay. She saw her father and his friends drunk and throwing beer bottles at her, but then the vision changed to Tomoko's smiling face. She remembered Drakus cackling menacingly, and then remembered Raiden caressing her gently as he spoke softly to her. Cho had shifted again, the arena growing dark once more. She looked at Baron's clone, this time seeing him more clearly. She looked up to see Raiden watching carefully, and found she had no desire to attack him. She looked at her charcoal-colored hands, then back at her opponent. She closed her eyes and raised her hands into the air, and her billowing hair waved more vigorously, as if the wind had begun to blow harder. She focused all of her anger towards Baron's clone, and tiny white flakes of snow appeared, hovering over Cho for a second. The flakes spun in midair before rushing towards the clone at the speed of light. Baron's clone's eyes widened, not having enough time to dodge the attack. The flakes of snow were actually tiny shards of glass. They tore the clone's body to shreds upon impact. He disintegrated completely, and Cho returned to normal. The arena was lit up once more, and Cho fell to her knees, panting. She stared at the spot where the clone had stood, now only seeing a pile of sand stained with crimson blood. From the stands, Raiden clapped and whooped. Cho looked up to see him cheering. "That was so cool, Cho! Amazing!" he called to her. Cho blushed, having never seen Raiden so ecstatic before. Baron crossed his arms, smirking.
That was quite amazing,
he said, obviously trying to hide his enthusiasm.
I'm afraid I have no more to teach you.
Cho jumped up to the stand, standing next to Raiden. "You mean the lessons are over?" she asked. Baron nodded.
For you,
he replied.
Raiden seems pretty strong as well, but his soldiers need some work. I will continue to train them, but you two may go home, I suppose.
Cho smiled and looked up at Raiden, who flashed the biggest, most attractive smile she had ever seen. Cho had to look down at her feet quickly. Raiden chuckled. "I thank you, Baron," he said, looking up at the demon. "I will let you know when we should commence our attack on the Emperor." Baron nodded and saluted Raiden. Raiden opened a portal, and he and Cho went back to his room. Cho was excited. Once back at Raiden's room, she squealed and threw herself upon the bed, snatching her doll and cuddling it. Raiden watched her, smiling at her newfound giddiness. He crawled onto the bed with her and held her gently. "I don't think I've ever seen you this happy," he said. Cho smiled at him. "I'm happy because now I know we have a chance of defeating Drakus," Cho replied. "I'll get to see Tomoko again." "The invasion of the human world is fast approaching," said Raiden. "Drakus will want me to bring you in to show you have completed your training to aid us. I think that'll be a perfect time to attack." Cho nodded, yawning. "It's been a long day," she said. Raiden smiled. "It's late," he said. "Time flies when you're training for a battle. You should sleep." Cho nodded and closed her eyes. She fell asleep a few minutes later, just as Raiden had whispered something to her. She was so tired she didn't catch what it was he had said. It felt like only a short while before Cho was awoken by a huge crashing sound. She jumped, sitting up quickly and looking around. Raiden was holding her tightly, and he ignited the candles around the room. Cho gasped, seeing the huge doors to the room had been destroyed, and Raiden's guards dead. Standing in the doorway was a very tall, snake-like demon. It looked female, standing about 8 feet tall. Her head was that of a cobra, and she was supported by a thick snake body that ended in a point at the tail. The snake demon's scales were an ocean greenish blue, and she had 2 human-like arms protruding from her torso. She had strange wings, and a closer look told Cho that they were huge silver metal blades that matched the many spikes she had protruding from her arms, shoulders, and back. The wings and spikes were all stained with dried blood. Raiden held Cho tighter as he stood up quickly. He moved in front of Cho so as to shield her if the snake demon attacked. "Persephone," said Raiden, his voice cold. "What are you doing here?" The snake demon flicked her tongue, tasting the air, and smiled.
"Why else, Raiden?"
said Persephone, her voice a deep alto.
"I've come here to take the human female to His Majesty. She is going to be executed."
Raiden's eyes widened. "What?" he exclaimed. "Why? Drakus gave me permission to train her." Persephone laughed, exposing her huge yellow fangs.
"Ah, yes, but it seems His Majesty decided to change his mind,"
she hissed.
"He can do that, you know."
Raiden gritted his teeth. "That's not fair," he growled. "I won't let you take her!" Persephone's bladed wings stretched high into the air, and she extended her arms to either side of her, the candlelight reflecting off the metal spikes.
I've been instructed to take her by force if I have to,
she explained, and her long body rolled into a sort of ball, the spikes exposed on the outside. She began to spin very fast and was hurled at Reitan and Cho like a giant ninja star. Cho screamed and Reitan took her in his arms, dodging Persephone's attack.